Welcome to another edition of the Polto Show. This is the show to educate you right there in your household. And I always say if you're driving in your car, but this time you're not. My guest today is one of the superstars. I call her a superstar because she's a super attorney. She wasn't born in this country, she was born in Ukrainian, but she moved to the United States. And I was very much impressed with her when I did homework on her. Do you know, and I was one too, but she started as a waitress. And I think everybody that has a waitress, they have to get to know the people. They have to be fast. They have to do what they're doing. But she started as a waitress, and when I was impressed with her, and she worked hard for the people. When I heard about her, I said I got to have her as a guest on my radio show, which was WWDB. And the calls that were coming in, the calls that I was getting when she was a host of my show, she was a guest on my show, and then all of a sudden I heard Sam Spicer. He was the head of the station, and he said, Pearl, she's going to be a host of her own show. And I thought, it didn't surprise me because she received so many calls. And because she was a host of her own show, she had many. I did more homework because I wanted her. I said to Ron, I want her on this show as well. And I wanted her on this show because she worked up. She's a hard worker. She's very honest, very honest. And if you don't like honesty, don't go to her because she's going to tell you like it is. And this is her personality. I received so many calls that she was going to be on the show, and I have a whole list of everything that was on the show. But I was also impressed with. Do you know when she was born? She was born July 4th, Independence Day. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? And when she does work, she goes overboard. The reason why I can't stress it enough, the reason why I'm so impressed with her, she goes overboard for the people. And she worked her way up. She worked her way all the way up to not only her own office, but I think she's got 10 to 16 attorneys under her. Under her. Can you imagine coming from another country, working off, being a waitress, and then saying, nothing's going to stop me now? And that's my saying, but it's her saying too. Nothing's going to stop her. And she's got 16 attorneys under her. And I'm sure they're all proud of her because she's got a reputation here. I'd like to welcome Marina Katz. Welcome to the Polto Show.
Hi, Pearl. How are you, love?
How are you? How are you?
I am great. Thank you to all your radio listeners for tuning in and listening to us today.
Well, they're impressed today because they couldn't wait. I was getting many calls by saying, when is she coming on? The first question, I got so many questions to ask you, but what made you, when you came to this country, what made you become an attorney?
First of all, I always believed helping people was my calling. And honestly, I was always debating between being a doctor or being a lawyer. I was very young and I was very naive and I love cats. So when we were in undergraduate school, one of the classes was a biology class with cat anatomy, where you have to cut little kittens. And I said, I'm not going to cut little kittens. So my second option is helping people from being a lawyer. So I went to drop an ad and left biology field and went to pre-law and been happily ever after.
Did you like pre-law? I mean, when you seen what you had to do?
I always loved it. No, I always loved medicine and law equally. I am kind of a frustrated doctor to this moment. You know, when somebody is sick, whether it's my children or my employee, they all call me for preliminary diagnosis. And usually I am right with most of my diagnosis. They could go to the doctor. I would say, you know what, you need a prescription, go to the doctor. I can't write a prescription. But I guess there's something internal in all of us that have our calling. And I love diagnosis. I read so much about medicine. And in my field of expertise, you know, one of the things that I do is personal injury, which does require understanding of medicine. So I am very, very happy that A, I love it, and B, I am able to help a lot of people.
You would have been a
And
good
my
doctor.
practice is very different than most of the legal practices
Mm-hmm.
in the city.
Mm-hmm.
See, when most of the legal practices are, you have sort of a narrow specialty. So you have, if you go to attorneys that do criminal law, they usually have a firm and maybe two, three, or whatever number of attorneys, but they all do criminal law. When you go to attorneys who do business law, they could have, you know, a few lawyers working or many lawyers working, doesn't matter, but they usually do one discipline. What I try to do is I joke about it, I call it people's lawyers. But what our firm does is we have many attorneys, and each one of them trying to develop a unique specialty. So when you come in to me and you need a criminal attorney, I have somebody working for me who does the criminal work. When you come to me and you need an immigration, we have somebody who does immigration. When you come to me and you need a family law, we have somebody who does family law. If you need the real estate, we have somebody. So I kind of like it, sort of like old fashioned lawyers where it's one stop shopping. You come, you usually talk to me, and then I will tell them who to see in my firm so they don't have to drive down the block or 10 blocks down the road, whatever it is, to see somebody with a specialty they need. It's sort of like, if you think about it, emergency room in a hospital, you come in, the doctor triage it and says, this one needs to see a gynecologist, this one needs to see the urologist, this one needs to see ear, nose, and throat doctor. But we have everybody, or mostly everybody, under the same roof.
And you're in charge of it all.
Yeah, and I like that. I really,
I know
really
you like
like
it. I know you like it. I feel it with it. What is the difference? How come you never became, or why do they become? Why do some attorneys become public defenders?
it. For a variety of reasons. You have to have a single calling, number one. Um, I think public defenders is one of the more difficult specialties because resources are limited. You have many, many clients. The clients, you do not work in a continuum. Um, and it's hard. I don't think I would want to be, I never wanted to be public defender, to perfectly honest with you, or for that matter, prosecutor. I always wanted to work for myself. The way I also say, I eat what I kill and I kill what I eat. So it's not, I know what I want to take, I know what I don't want to take. I'm not required as a public defendant, you're required to take the case that comes down the line, whether you want a case or not,
A
whether you
lot of
believe
people
in
don't like
cases.
that. A lot of people don't like public defenders. I had one client that called me. She said, well, she committed a crime, and she hired a public defender, and the public defender said it was going to take 15 to 25 years for her to be in prison. She said, no way. She hired a high class attorney, and she was out in 3 years. Why?
That is absolutely well. Public defenders, no matter how good they are, and a lot of people there because it's their true calling, cannot uh, do what private attorneys can do. We could spend as much time as we need on one client. If I need to work on a client for 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, I can do that. That's a luxury that I can have. Public defender, they have a hearing today, tomorrow, and day later, and until they're attached to the trial, they cannot really give enough time to the case. Don't they try? There's some really, really good public defenders out there, but it just they really constrained by their resources, and they're constrained by the time because they probably represent in any given month probably over 100 people, where we can have a luxury to represent one, two, five, whatever I think our capacity is. And if I think we took too many cases to be effective, the next client that come in, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, we cannot represent you. And I'll be honest about it. And another thing, what I can do that a lot of people cannot, I could tell you up front what your chances are. You want to retain us? Fine. You don't want to retain us? That's fine also. But the client has on a day one or in the, if I need to do research, obviously, until the research is completed, they have a pretty clear picture what the expectations are for them.
When people get into an accident, an example, why do some attorneys get them lots and lots and lots of money, and other attorneys doesn't? What's the difference?
A lot. Oh my God. First of all, accident is one of the things that we do the most of. I personally do a lot of that personal and try cases. Um, this is a very important area because a lot of people think they can handle these cases, but you really need to develop certain expertise in it because there is a difference in the case. So let's try to figure out what the perimeters are. What makes one case better than another, and what takes to make a case. So number one is liability. Whose fault it is in an accident? Because a lot of time People, and a lot of people don't want to hear it. It might be your fault in an accident, but you got to tell them on day one, I don't want your case. It's your fault in an accident. And people don't waste their time, and hope and plans. That's very important to be the truthful with them and tell them exactly what the expectation should be. But what happens is, let's say the liability is established and it's another person's fault in an accident. The next thing is your injuries. And you understand yourself, somebody who has a broken arm will get more money than somebody who has a couple scratches in their arm. It's just a natural thing. It depends on the injury. It also depends on whether the person was working and now they have a lost wages, or the person was not working, whether the person will ever go back to work. I mean, we have a case that's a millions and millions of dollars cases, but they worth that amount of money because the losses are so great. A person who went to a hospital, went to the doctor 3 times, cannot expect to receive the same recovery that person who is in a wheelchair after the accident. That's sort of common sense. So it's not that easy to say there's a single factor. Obviously, good lawyers do make a difference, uh, but you do need to first know what medical things. Like somebody called me and would say, "Well, how much is my case is worth?" And I could say, well, it depends on so many factors that I cannot tell you on day one what it is. Once you finish treating and I read your medical reports, I could basically make an assessment what injuries you have. And it's very hard in the beginning. Somebody comes in, I have a backache. There's no way of knowing if it is just a muscle spasm, if it is disc bulging, if it is disc herniation, if the person might need a surgery, if my person might need spinal injection. So that depends on a lot of factors. Uh,
How come attorneys don't like going to court?
oh, that's for some. Again, you're asking such a good question, for.
Well, let me wait a minute before you answer that. Let me tell you why that question came from me. Years ago, I sued TransUnion,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to pro se it. I had to pro se it because no attorney knew about credit laws. And I was in a courtroom, I had a jury, so I knew the whole process of it. And I spoke to the jury and I gave them the opening statement, and I did win the case. And the attorney that was for TransUnion now, big attorney for the credit bureau, said, I don't even know how to follow her. But then I realized attorneys don't like going to court. How come?
Well, for a variety of reasons. I think, by the way, clients also don't want to go to court. I think subconsciously people understand that sitting in a courtroom for 3 or 4 or 5 days, nobody ever enjoys that moment. But the other wonderful thing about it is when you are tried by jury, it's a jury of your peers, and some people have a different, and you don't, somebody said to me, well, you educate the jury. You really don't educate the jury. You try to explain a certain things to the jury, but judge is not going to let you there stand for 5 6 hours and explain the legal process to the jury. So subconsciously everybody know they don't want to. Some lawyers really afraid. I never forget, I tried my first case. It was 1988 when I tried my first case, so now I'm dating myself. And it was an arbitration case, and I came in with my client, and all days in was an arbitration center, and the attorney, who was much older than I am, was defending the case on the other side. And I look over to his table, because tables are pretty close to each other, and his hands were shaking, and I'm like, why is his hand shaking? My hands never shook from that point ever. So there's a different nerve. We all wire differently. Some of us enjoy talking to the jury. Some of us afraid of the jury. Some of us can keep the conversation going longer. It so happen I think my accent is a plus, not a minus when I talk to the jury, because they listen more attentively. I think it's a good thing. But in the beginning I was very concerned about my accent, and I was very apologetic to the jury, and judges didn't think it was such a good idea, and but I did like it, and I did get a sympathy of the jury on the day one, speaking with an accent, and eventually judges caught on that it's probably, too much sympathy for a little girl from Ukraine, and they said, you cannot do this anymore. So I stopped doing it. but this is something that to some people come natural. Like, think about it, you have many guests on your radio show, and some people are nervous, and some people look forward to it, and some people are easier to interview, and some people are harder to interview. So that's number one. Number two is, it's hard to convey to jury in a lot of instances how much case is worse. It's easy when somebody is in a wheelchair. It's easy to explain when somebody has a broken arm. Here's an x-ray of the normal arm. Here's an x-ray of Mr. Smith after the accident. That's an easy part to explain, and people could see the fracture bone and they go, oh my God. But if somebody has what in our field called soft tissue injuries, that is harder to explain to the jury, or brain injuries you cannot see. I think until the movie Concussion came about, it was very hard for people to comprehend that idea of the brain injury, because when person did the MRI or CAT scan of the brain, they came out normal, and the fans would always argue, "What, the MRI is normal? Look." So now people are more savvy about it. In the old days, if you remember, if the football player went down, everybody was like, oh my God, his leg is broken, is his arm broken? And if he stood up, everybody was cheering, everything is fine. Now the protocol is that he hit his head is the first and more important than whether he broke his arm or his leg. So that's, we change, we learn more. And another thing is, you get a jury, and the injury might be $1 million injury, and somebody loves your plaintiff, but they work and they don't make a lot of money, and they think giving your client $100,000, they're giving them all the money in the world, when in reality your case worth a lot more. So when somebody tells the story and say, oh, this person is making a lot of money, well, you start asking, if you ask 10 people, if I tell you that Mrs. Smith makes a lot of money, what is a number will be? And you'll see, there will be anywhere from 50,000 maybe to 500 million, because, for each one of us, what a lot means differently. So I think that's what's important to remember.
Okay, let me ask you something. This is my field, and this confuses me too. I'm a paralegal, and I studied a
Mm-hmm.
lot about law. Why doesn't, in the law books, why is it only bankruptcy laws and no credit laws? That confuses me.
I don't know. I think the credit law came about maybe later on. I don't know much about credit law. I know that's your expertise, so you probably know better about it.
Well, I do, but it
I don't know.
confused me because attorneys don't know credit law. They know bankruptcy laws, and, and,
Um,
and that confuses me because if a person has a credit problem, the attorney says file bankruptcy, and that's the wrong thing to say. But if they knew credit laws, and I was always curious why attorneys don't know credit laws.
Probably because you can't make a lot of money in it. Uh,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. No,
if
you're
you
right.
think,
You're right. You're being honest. I love it. I love it. You're being honest.
it's the truth. But what I also think, perhaps the law schools also didn't do such a good job by teaching the course in credit laws. I remember being in law school more than 30 some years ago, but I still remember, I don't think we had a class in bankruptcy. I don't think we had a class in credit law. So probably because what they're hoping to do is solve those problems with the counselors, but the problem is snowballing now between all this, you know, college loans, credit card loans, and all that stuff. The class in credit law is probably a very timely thing to teach in law school. I saw an interesting movie yesterday called Landromat,
Laundromat.
and it's a little bit about the way financial system is. And interestingly enough, Meryl Streep is in it, and Antonio Banderas in it. It's now on the Netflix, so if somebody has it, they should see, just to get a glimpse on how the financial system works. The movie is not the most wonderful movie in the world, but you get a little glimpse about the truthfulness of the credit system.
Like, what is the best lawsuit that ever came to you, or what's the best lawsuit that you would want to do, or it
My
doesn't matter?
best one is probably is the worst one at the same time. because for the personal injury attorney, the best lawsuits obviously are the one where the people injured the most.
Okay.
Because if you come to me and you say I'm fine, obviously you have no case. If you come to me and you say I was in a car accident, or the family brought you in a wheelchair and you were gainfully employed individual, and now you're going to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair, obviously that's the best case to have enough insurance on another side. See, you're also limited by the insurance that person purchases. So you could have a greatest case in the world, but if the person that had an accident with you, whose fault it is in an accident, has limited resources themselves, and then they bought a minimum policy for permitted by state of Pennsylvania, and that's what people don't understand. If you don't mind, I'd like to spend a minute on it.
Go ahead.
See, the Pennsylvania law uh, for the automobile accidents, insurance of automobile accident, I guess, or automobile policies, was established in the 90s. And the limit that required for you to have is $5,000 medical pay and 1530 in your liability. What it means is it's $15,000 per person and $30,000 per accident, but cannot be more than $15,000 a person. So if God forbid somebody hits a bus full of children, all the insurance and injures a lot of them, all the insurance company says, here's our $30,000 and you on the hook for rest of it. So when somebody buys insurance, they should really go to reputable insurance agent. And another thing that happened in Pennsylvania a long time ago, and that's the biggest misunderstanding, that's probably even bigger misunderstanding than credit law, Pearl, is this limited tort versus full tort. When somebody goes to insurance agent and they say, well, I would like to buy less costly insurance, agent sells them a limited tort policy. People don't understand what it is. Agent doesn't explain it. And people do not realize that agents actually work for the insurance company. They don't work for them. And what limited tort means exactly what it says. It limits your right to sue unless you have serious and permanent injury. So you can have a serious injury, it might not be permanent. So you're out of work for 6 months, you have a broken arm, but it's not permanent because the arm will heal. Or you could have a permanent injury, but it's not serious, like a scar. An insurance company will deny a payment. They're saying, well, you selected limited tort on your policy. And you say, why is it? It's on my policy. It's not on this other person whose fault it is policy. The way it is there's a limited number of insurance companies that permitted to write insurance in the state of Pennsylvania. So today, the person who was at fault for the accident or his insurance benefited because the person who was injured selected limited tort and they don't have to pay to this injured person. Tomorrow, that person is involved in an accident and the insurance company wouldn't have to pay because the other person selected limited tort. So indirectly, that small number of insurance companies are limited because insurance agent and people without knowledge purchasing this limited tort do not, under any circumstances, buy the policy that has limited tort in it. Buy a full tort. The difference is very small in the premium. It's probably 10% the difference, but insurance companies do such a good job trying to get insurance agents to sell it and promoting it and not explaining to people exactly what rights they gave away for this 10%, that it is a prevailing almost for people to buy limited tort. So all your listeners, after the show is over, I would like for you to go back to where you keep your insurance policies, open the policy up, and see if it is a limited tort or full tort. If it's a full tort, great, leave it alone, you did a good job. If it's a limited tort, immediately either call your agent, go online, whichever way you purchase that insurance, and ask them to change the limited tort to full tort. Don't wait until the policy period is over. You could do it anytime. So do it right away. Save yourself. And by the way, it's not only applies to you, but to all of the resident relatives that live in your household. So if your son or daughter lives at home with you, and that son and daughter is in the car with a friend, and the accident happens, and God forbid they're injured, that limited tort is still applies, and your son or daughter will not be able to receive anything from the injuries that they sustain. So that's something that you have to be very careful. You're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting all of the members of your family by not thinking about it and buying the right insurance.
That's good to know. You have 16 attorneys under you. How come they're not in their own? How come they're working under you and they didn't want to go on their own?
I think there's a strength in numbers. I think it's hard to be alone. I would not go to single practitioner. I could tell you that no matter how good that person is,
Wait a minute. Say that again. Repeat that again. I love that.
I would not go to single practitioner no matter how good that person is,
Okay.
because there is a strength in numbers. You need to sit. What we do, we have attorneys meeting every Tuesday where we sit down, we bring the cases that we have questions on, and we have a discussion about it. And think about it, you have an emergency, and that attorney is on a trial. Who's going to address your needs?
Good.
See, there
That's
is this
interesting.
sweet number, I think, between not being able to handle the case or having too many lawyers or too many clients, where those people become just a number. You know, I think at the end of the day, I never wanted to be too big, and I never wanted to be too small. There's this, was it Goldilocks and Three Bears, just right. And I think just right size of the law firm, you need to have at least seven. And I think if you have more than 25, you have too much.
A lot of people come to me to say, "Pearl, who do you hire? What's the best lawsuit case? What do you look for in an attorney?" Because people
I tell
don't
you what
know.
what I say to the client, what you look in the attorney is a trust. The bottom line is, and people are afraid for some reason to think of it in this way, but you would not go to the doctor who doesn't look right to you. You'd say no. If you have a serious problem, you don't necessarily go to one doctor. Sometimes you go for second opinion. I think it's the same thing with a lawyer. I think it's very, very important that when you walk out of that lawyer's office, if you do not think you could trust that person, do not stay with that person. That's where people are wrong. They say, oh, I already signed with a lawyer. Oh, my lawyer did this wrong or did that wrong. I think, and the biggest problem actually, what I think happens is the lawyers do not return clients' call.
Oh,
My
you're right.
philosophy
You're right.
is, I think that's the big, I hear that across the
Me
board,
too. Me
the
too.
the lawyers do not return the call. I've called one law firm, and I would never stay with that kind of a law firm, that's for sure. That says, if it is old business, press 2. If there's new business, press 1. To me, it's just mind-boggling. It's a person. It's not an old business or new business. It's the person who needs your help, and they need it now. The way I tell my clients, if I did not return your call within 24 hours, I'm either dead or I didn't get a message, so call back. Do not hesitate. And also, what I tell my clients, never start your conversation, I'm sorry to bother you. You're not a bother.
That's
Your
right.
matter is important. I'm here for you. You basically hire me to work for you. And especially in the personal injury field, all of our matters on a contingent fee basis. So if there is no recovery, there is no fee. So I personally screen most of the cases that come to the firm, because I don't want to give person false sense of hope, but I also don't want to waste my money because we front all the costs on the cases. And I don't want to spend the time and money to pursue the case if I don't think we could be successful. So screening, I think, is very important to make sure that we have a right case. We put it at the right perspective. We told person what to expect. We keep a constant touch with the client to make sure that they seeing right doctors. A lot of time when the benefits run out, the doctor says, well, I'm not going to see you anymore. The person doesn't know what they to do and they just stop treating without calling a lawyer. That's wrong. The channels of communication has to be always open. I tell all my lawyers the same thing. Unfortunately, even in a small firm like mine, you do get a client who did not get a phone call back from one of the lawyers who doesn't work for, who works for me. Then my receptionist usually is very, very good. I have one of the greatest receptionists in the world. So if the Mr. Smith called again, she usually says, well, did so-and-so did not return your call? And if Mr. Smith says, yes, that person did not return my call, what she does is she makes a note and she gives me a note to say, by the way, Mr. Smith called, this lawyer, whoever the person could be, they didn't return his call. Then I get involved and I call the lawyer up and I say, what happened? Why did you return the call? And then if there is an explanation, great. If there is no explanation, I personally return the call to make sure that the client is aware what needs to be done. Sometimes the lawyer say, well, I sent him a letter. That's nice. We appreciate sending the letter. But I think even nowadays where everything is done by emails and texts and everything, I think the personal phone call is very important.
So
You
what's
and
the,
I are old timers. Let's face that reality.
you know what? A lot of people, I mean, I've seen you, and a lot of people have said they've seen you in Washington. How come? You're all over the place. You're with congressmen, you're with senators, you're with, well, how come?
Well, don't forget, I ran for U.S. Congress in
Yes,
2008,
yes.
so that was a fun thing. I believe that politics are very important. I mean, what do they say? You do not get the politics you get if you don't vote for them. So I think number one, you have to stay active and you have to know what's currently pending in Congress, what's currently pending in Senate. We do immigration work in my office, and that's a very fluid field. It's very, very important to stay on top of all the bills that are currently pending. And you could pretty much assess it, what's going to pass and what's not going to pass if you stay in touch with the people. I also believe that, I have a PAC, financial PAC, and we give money to Republicans and we give money to some Democrats because what we need to know is to have the right people in the right position. I think the person are very, very important, especially what's going on with the politics now when you have so many different channels, and the same event that happened, when you watch one channel and another, you're not sure if they're talking about the same event even. So without getting political, I could tell you that there is a very few outlets in media right now that report. Everybody have their political view that they add to the story, and that's wrong.
If somebody's
I,
in a,
I live
if interrupt you though, but somebody's in a car accident. This was another question is asked to me. If somebody's in a car accident, some attorneys will take a year. Some attorneys will take a lot of years. What's the difference? Why would you choose the one that's going to take years to get?
you would never choose anybody who would take years,
Okay.
but sometimes the circumstances are such that it might have to. Some lawyers have a different view. What I always do, I tell the clients on a day one, you are always in charge of your case. So what happens is somebody is treating, whatever the period of time, when they done treating, contrary to popular belief, doctors do not send report the next day because doctors don't get paid for their report. So the doctor treated you. Then when doctor has a free time, the doctor will write the report. We're lucky enough that we've been in business for a very long time and we developed some good relationship with some doctors. So we always call in and say, can you please do us a favor and give us report sooner? So then report is generated because nothing happens until person is finished treating. Unless they're very, very severe injury and there's a small policy that you basically can send to the insurance company the information and some medicals and receive the policy limits. But other than that, person has to finish treating for the lawyer to know what exactly the extent of the injury.
What's the best
After
way? What's the best way to hire an attorney? if you don't know one? By a referral?
Hire me. Well,
Well, we know that. They're already going to hire you. But what's the best way to do their homework or referral?
no, you know what? I don't actually know. I do a lot of advertising. You know, we have our website is Philly Lawyers, so it's easy website to remember. You know, my phone numbers is easy to remember. Everything else, you know, we are in the newspapers and Google, and I have a billboard. All this stuff we do. 99% of my business comes from the word of mouth. I'm on the cover of the Yellow Pages. Now it's no longer Yellow Pages, it's Dex Media. At the end of the day, we also do this whole branding thing that, you know, Google, you know, there's so many different things. I do not think that it's the right way to hire a lawyer. I think it's a good way to start doing research once you have somebody's name and to see, you know, about them, to read about them. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's not the reviews, because I got an ad. I didn't use it because I think it should be illegal, but I got an ad from some computer service that says we can get you 1,000 5 stars reviews. I mean, how truthful is that? So when you go to this website and you see a lawyer with 1,000 5 star reviews, you know, it's not fair. It's not true. You know, it's very hard to do it that way. Um, Looking through in all days, you look through the Yellow Pages to see the picture you like.
Yeah, yeah,
Again, you
yeah.
know, who has a bigger ad? Who has more billboards? I don't know. I think the word of mouth is important. A family member or a friend experience with a lawyer is important. Um, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, interview with a lawyer is important. I'll give your listeners my phone number if anybody's interested to talk to us. It's 215-396-9001. 215-396-9001. Philly Lawyer is our website, and obviously, you know, they have some information to begin at least checking me out. But yeah, you know, we're all, like you and I, know thousands of lawyers. A lot of people don't know one lawyer, and it's terrible because you see the advertising on the television, and some of the advertising are so abrasive in my mind, but yet, you know, it works because people don't know anybody else. They see a number in the big letters and they're like, oh, you know, this person on TV might be good. No, they just paid the money to be on TV.
How many
Or
states do
this
you
person,
cover? How many states do you cover?
we cover 3 states: Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, where I have personal licenses, and I have office. It used to be having 2 offices in New York. Now we are one office in New York. Um, but you know, a lot of times people come into the lawyer who doesn't even have a license in a particular state. You know, if it's a local state, the laws are about approximately the same, even though the numbers are different. What also people do not understand, you go from county to county. Obviously, there is no 2 cases alike. I always say cases are like fingerprints. There's not 2 of them alike, but there's a lot of similarity in the cases. And if you try the same case in Philadelphia versus trying the same case in Montgomery County, the numbers are different. The same thing in the personal injury cases, the value of the case in the state of Pennsylvania would be greater than in another state.
What
Um,
made you come to Philadelphia?
well, we immigrated in 1979 to Philadelphia. We had relatives who came a year before to Philadelphia, and since we didn't know anybody and we didn't speak any English, I didn't speak a word of English when I came to the United States.
Mm,
Obviously, we wanted to be next to somebody who at least can tell us how to say bread in English.
mm.
Um, and at that time, there was a massive exodus from the former Soviet Union. And it was a very good time. I remember coming to the United States. I actually worked 2 jobs. and went to college full time. I was a waitress and I was a dental assistant. So, and then I went to college. And now, my children say, "Oh, mom, I want to take this class and I want to take this class and I don't want to take this class when they're in college." I'm like, that's not what I did. I didn't take the classes that I wanted to take. I took the classes that were closest to each other so they can come in and spend the shortest period of time in college that will leave me more time to go to work and spend more time working.
Amazing. I mean,
So
there's a lot of
I,
attorneys not like you.
most of them probably aren't like me. We also speak, I speak three languages, maybe even more, but fluently three. Um,
Nothing
Most
stopped
of
you.
it,
Nothing stopped you. Nothing stopped you from getting ahead.
no. And I think that's one of the things, this expression, there's not a dog in a fight, it's a fight in a dog that counts.
Yeah.
I will tell you another cute story that your listeners might like. My oldest daughter, when she was 4 or 5 years old, she went to Montessori. And in Montessori, the teachers are taught that they should develop children's imagination and never say to children, you can't do something. So, the children are sitting in a circle. The teacher told me that story. And that sort of became the theme for that daughter life. And they said to the children, what do you want to do? So some children say they want to be ballerina, somebody wants to be a teacher, somebody wants to be a fireman. My daughter says, I want to be a tiger. And the teacher, obviously, even though she has a good knowledge and she shouldn't say something that you can't do, she says to my oldest daughter, Kelsey, you cannot be a tiger. And Kelsey says to her, what do you mean I can't be a tiger? Mommy said I can do anything I want. I can be anything I want to be, and I want to be a tiger. Fast forward, that daughter went to Columbia University and became Columbia Lion. So, anything you want to do, and that's what I convey to my children, that you can do and be anything you want to be if you work hard and you apply yourself. The beauty of this country, this is the country of opportunities.
Mhm.
This is the greatest country in the world. And I always say, when I travel abroad and I come back, I want to do the same thing as Pope does, get on the knees and kiss this ground. I am a big believer that America is the greatest country in the world, and we all should be
Yeah.
patriots of our country.
Is your parents here? Are your parents here too?
My parents came here. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 2017, but he loved this country. My mother is still alive. Not in the greatest health, but God's willing, with the prayers, she'll live until 120. But yeah, my parents are here, and I have two wonderful daughters. So, I am really, truly blessed. I'm blessed to be an American. I'm blessed to be in this country. Um, so
Another
that,
question that was asked of me is, can you make anything into a lawsuit?
yes, the answer is yes. Can
All
you make
right.
anything into winning lawsuit? That's a different story.
Okay.
But, sometimes people come to us to defend the claims, and sometimes the claims are pretty bizarre. But yes, you could sue anybody for anything. This is a sue happy place also. And because of our jury system, and in most of the cases, people responsible for their own legal fees, you're not required to pay the other side legal fees. Sometimes the lawsuit that brought up are bogus. I have a case that we're going to have to defend is a person who is a builder, who is our client, had an agreement with another person for whom they were supposed to build something. That person gave them a deposit, and they said, and they said, yes, we're going to build you. Our client said to this person, yes, we're going to build for you whatever the requirement was. Obviously, I can't talk about the names or anything else about the case, but you have to buy the materials for us to do whatever the work it was. And that potential client said, well, I don't have a truck to deliver the material. Would you do me a favor and buy the material? In this particular case, it was flooring. Would you buy the material and I will pay you for the material and then I will pay you for the work? So the builder who we represent went out and bought the material, brought the material to the site and said, "This is the material, here's the receipt." And the person tells him, "Well, I want to see that material as a finished product, and then I will pay you." And then my builder said, "Well, that's not the agreement. The agreement we had that you're responsible for the cost of the material, and you should reimburse me for material. Otherwise, I'm not doing the work," which is sort of understandable, but you could see how the conflict arose. And now my builder is stuck with the material because it was a sort of semi-custom material. That person paid a deposit. My builder is not going to do the work because he doesn't know now that he got stiffed for the material. He might get stiffed for the full work. So the owner of the property now is suing the builder. You know, the builder has a counterclaim obviously for the material, and that lawsuit will go on. And the only people who's going to get rich out of it or some money out of it are the lawyers.
What makes a person, or what makes an attorney go by pro se or by the hour or don't charge? What's the difference?
Well, don't charge is very few attorneys can be in business and don't charge because we have the bills to pay and
Mm-hmm.
everything else. It's called pro bono work. There is a special charities that give that money for the pro bono work. So there is a pro bono attorneys out there, but they usually work for particular organization and they usually do one or two cases a year. And they are being subsidized by that charity. Or there is, some organization require the lawyers and they pay them salary to do the pro bono work. So
Do they
that's
need do
one
they need
thing.
money up front if they have the lawsuit case with you?
We do have a little bit of pro bono work, not a lot. I could tell you that. The other thing that you have is a contingent fee basis. That's what we do. We do 90% of our cases pro bono because that's the personal injury side of our
Mm-hmm.
business. All the personal injury cases are done on a contingent fee basis, which means there is no recovery, there is no fee. So we don't charge anything for the case. We don't go after the client for the cost. We pay everything up front and then we take the percentage of the victory. That's called pro bono. Some cases are done on retainers, and that's when you pay upfront X number of dollars, and then the lawyers charge their time against that retainer. It's like a deposit money, and
Okay.
that's usually a family law cases done on the retainers. And the reason being, you cannot really estimate the cost and you are not allowed to be on a contingent fee basis in the family law cases. So you take the retainer and you charge your time against that retainer.
Okay,
What's
Marina, I want you to give the people your telephone number really
okay?
clear because the people are listening and now they know what you do because the last couple of minutes I'm going to be doing on the credit part and it's going to be it was so great. You gave a lot of important information, but give your number out where they can reach you or your office for
Okay,
anything.
my office number, we have couple numbers, so it's 1-800 law LAW, what we practice 1917. That's 800 number. Nobody needs 800 numbers now because most of the phone calls are free, but the local number is 215-396-9001. The website is Philly Lawyers. Um, and you can Google B. Marina Katz, or you can Google law firm Katz Jameson and Associates. We advertise. You could see us. You can learn about us. Everybody's welcome to call. If you just have a question, please call. Please mention you heard us on Polto show. We will be delighted to tell Pearl about her loyal listeners, and
Then you
we
can hang
will.
up on them. Then you can hang up on them.
No, I would never hang up on anybody. And remember this much: no case is too big or too small. for every individual, their case is the biggest case.
That's really
And
great.
that's unfortunately what happens in the city of Philadelphia in the personal injury field. If you have a very, very big case, there is a lot of good firms that will handle it. But unless your case is a multi-million-dollar case, a lot of firms will not take your case. And the way I structure myself, I wanted to make sure that people have a fair representation regardless how big or how small your case is. So in my firm, the same lawyers that handle multi-million-dollar case will handle your case. I do not separate. Small case goes to the this lawyer and the larger case goes to this lawyer. We have an assignment system. It's a computerized system. So if lawyer A got this case, lawyer B will get next case, and we only have good lawyers working for us.
I want to thank you, Marina. You should be a talk show host.
I thank you, Paul. You make it very easy, and I thank your operator. They did a great job not to lose the signal. So thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you,
and a
and thank
special
you.
thank you to your listeners.
I will get the calls. Thank you again, and
Thanks, Paul.
a
Thanks a
Merry
million.
Christmas. Thank you,
Merry
Marina.
Christmas, Happy Holidays. Take care.
Same to you.
Bye bye.
I want to talk to the people about the credit now. I want to talk to you. My fee is normally, as many clients do know, my fee is normally $1,500. And why it's $1,500? I dispute with all the credit bureaus. I tack the bill collectors. I try to get your score up as high as possible, as high as 800, 900 if possible, and especially during the holidays. So because of December, because of this special holiday, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, every year I try to do a special during the holidays. My gift to you this Christmas, my gift to you, when you call my toll-free number, my fee, you ready? My fee is going to be $550. You heard me, $550, practically half price. And that's because it's going to be my gift to you to clear up your credit, clean you up for the next year. So if you need a mortgage, you heard our mortgage guy a couple weeks ago. So this is my gift to you. $550 is going to be the fee. You can't call me up in January to say, Pearl, I still want to, can I take advantage of this offer? The answer is no. I'm strict too. So from now to the end of the year, it's only $550. Call me up. I will give you a special package. You mail it back, I will start you that quick. As fast as you are, as I always say, I am faster. And if my voicemail comes on, which I never does. I normally answer the phone. I don't care if it's 4 in the morning. You leave your address. I will send you out the package, and it'll have that special fee on it. Please don't hold on to it, because this is my gift to you during the holidays. I want next year everybody to get their mortgages, and not where mortgages were going out of business. I want everybody to get their mortgages for next year. And if I have to work as hard as I did this year, I want to work harder next year, and everybody getting that score up super, super high. And Ron will tell you, I work overtime for that reason. And I'm sure, and I see that I choose the people that work hard too. Marina works as hard as I do, maybe harder, because I see what she did when she came into this country. She works as hard too, and everybody will say, how come you work so hard? We work so hard to please the people. We care about the people, and we will continue doing it for the people. And I love my job. I mean, people will say, hey, Pro, you go on and on and on, because I love my job. I love helping the people. So I understand where she's coming from, and anybody that's like that. And there's a lot of people out there, and I'm sure you know, businesses out there. You have an answering service. People don't want to hear an answering service. They don't want to hear it, so they hang up the phone and they want to talk to a real person. It's rare that you're going to get an answering service with mine or even Marina Katz, because she has so many attorneys there, though. But again, I will repeat, 1-800-876-CREDIT, C-R-E-D. Call it up to say, give me your special $550 deal with cleaning up my credit. Don't procrastinate. And if you say, well, I got this to pay, I got gifts to pay, let me tell you, that's the biggest gift to you. That's the biggest gift to you, because come December 1st, come January 1st, it goes back up to the normal fee with it. And I'm sure you don't want to do that. And you may have to if something's harassing you, or the bank's harassing you, or the mortgage companies are harassing you. So if you want a mortgage, if you want to refinance, and you want to get that score up super high, I'm giving you an offer you can't refuse. And if you do refuse, it's your ball game, not mine. And Marina, are you still listening to me?
I am. I'm enjoying it, and I agree with you. There is a Machiavellian law: pay yourself first.
Yes.
And this is something I'm not saying it and reciprocating because you asked me to be a guest on the show. but I think people should understand how important their credit rating is. And they could ask even their car dealer or the banker. If your credit score are higher, the interest rate that you're paying will be lower. So that's the biggest gift. You're absolutely right. This is a gift that you can give to yourself.
Yes.
And pay yourself first. That's the golden rule, and that's something that people should do it. And my jaw almost dropped that I on the Skype, so I couldn't do it. But 550 is incredibly reasonable
Yeah.
fee, and it makes all the difference. And I'm not, I don't want to think that people think, well, Marina was a guest, now she's reciprocating and paying homage to the host. But in reality, I'm in agreement with you. Your credit is your faith.
Your credit is so
And it's the
important.
first thing
Yeah.
that financial institution read about you is your credit score. And I have
I,
few
I
friends
have
of
I have
mine.
I have to tell you, they all, as I said, credit's important to me, and they just did it around 10 years ago with this credit score. I've already written to Washington. I hope to appear with the Federal Trade Commission to do away with the score, because every company out there has different scores. People don't even know it. They don't care about their credit. They're more concerned about their score. What's my credit score? What's your credit score? And your credit score will go up and down, up and down. If you buy a mortgage, or if you apply for a mortgage or a car, you're going to lose 30 points, 30 points, 30 points. So you could have really good credit and have a really low score of 400. And you need to get educated too, and that's my job. I am an author of 5 books on credit, but I'm not telling you to buy my books. I'm telling you to listen. Listen to yourself, as she said. Pay yourself first when it comes to credit. And
Yeah, and it's a big difference. 1 percentage point on $100,000 mortgage, it makes a huge difference for somebody over 15 or 30 years that they're going to be paying. And the banks, you're absolutely right. Banks only judge you by your credit score.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
And that's
I've
sad.
seen it
I think
over and
it's
over.
sad. I think it's
Yeah.
sad because they don't know nothing else. They know nothing else but the score. The first thing they asked you is, even mortgage companies. Mortgage companies went under this year. 4 mortgage companies went under. The first thing they asked you is, what is your score? And then I did some homework to find out. You go to 5 different places and each one has a different score. That's
How about all the scores that you go, I don't know, Karma, I forgot what's the name of that website that says, they will give you your score for free. Do they get it from many sources or just from one source?
just from one source, and even that source, the Federal Trade Commission is trying to close them up. And I know which one you're talking about. The Federal Trade Commission is right now send me a letter. They're trying to close them up because they get their own source, and it's the wrong source. It's the wrong source. So people has to get educated. They have to do their homework. I will educate them just like you, right on the phone, and I will
But
do it.
until they cancel that credits reporting, is there anything else people can do? Obviously, they want to go to you and get their credit up. But let's say they did all this great thing and you got their credit up, and then some other bureau reporting the lower score. Would they know it's a mistake? How would the person know?
Well, by the time they're done with me, if you are my client, by the time they're done with me, they will know, because I'm strict. I'm strict at that. I'm strict with my clients. I really am. I want them to know even after I'm done. I don't want them to come back to me in a year from now to say, Pearl, I got bad credit again. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I was applying all over the place. And then when I look at their credit report, I see what they were doing. They're applying all over the place, and they shouldn't have been doing it. So my job is to educate them as well. I want to thank you again. This is the end of the show. I want to thank you, Marina. This is a great
Thank you,
show.
Paul.
Great show.
Thank you, the listeners. Yes.
It's going to go all over the place. So tell your other attorneys there. I said hi. All the
I
people
will.
they're calling me. I hope I answered all their questions with it. I want again. Next week we're having a real estate show. I'm against real estates. I really am. I'm surprised I'm having this show on. But this one guy said, Pearl, we won't screw the people up. We won't. We'll say it like it is, because many real estates will overcharge the people. So next week you're going to be tuning in again. This is Pearl Polto, as always, making the most of your credit. Take advantage of that offer and listen to this show again with Marina Katz. If you have a look, you can call her, you can call me, and then I will make sure she calls you. Thank you, people. Thank you. And thank you, Marina.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.